What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're jumping into a little history lesson. Let's go. The history of the Dutch resistance during World War II in the Netherlands, 1940 to 45. Get over and show history hustle all the love in the world. We're subbed up. We're smashing the like button. You go do the same. Let's go on the journey and see what we got.
The Germans invaded, conquered and occupied the Netherlands in May 1940 and installed their own oppressive regime. From the get-go, Dutch resistance occurred, but what was this resistance like? How many people were involved and what kind of activities did they undertake? In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the Dutch resistance during the Second World War in the Netherlands.
Teach me.
Good to have you back on the channel. And if you're new, my name is Stefan, I'm a Dutch history teacher and I make videos about history for you. And if you find it interesting, hit that subscribe button and also put on notifications. So we talked about Dutch collaboration with the Germans in World War II quite a bit. Now we're going to talk about the Dutch resistance against the occupier. I'm going to talk about the activities, the people, their motivations, and this will be a general overview of the history of the Dutch resistance during World War II. Let's dive into it now. When the Germans took over the Netherlands, the emotion of dismay was the most prevalent. Sometimes it was combined with anger because the royal family and the government had fled for England. Others felt hate and were determined not to bow for the enemy. Not many people decided to resist the occupier straight away, but there were some cases. For example, Bernardus IJzerdraad, who started printing anti-German leaflets as soon as the Dutch army had surrendered to the Germans. He would found one of the first resistance groups, named the Geuzen. Initial resistance was mostly in the form of illegal papers. The Dutch communist parties, talking about the CPN and the RSAP, they went underground straight away. And 90% of the Dutch merchant ships decided not to return to the Dutch harbors because they did not want to aid the enemy. The first collective expression of discontent happened on the 29th of June 1940. The day has also become known as Anjerdag, Coronation Day. It was the birthday of Prince Bernhard. People put on a carnation flower on their clothes to show their aversion towards the German occupation. The Germans were overwhelmed by this, they didn't expect it, and they carried out punitive measures. Former Dutch Supreme Commander General Winkelman was put into custody, and also papers were forbidden to write about the royal family any longer. On August 31st, it was the Queen's birthday. The Dutch papers didn't write about it, and thus the German measures had the desired effect. On November 26, 1940, a professor of the Leiden University openly protested against the forced resignation of his Jewish colleagues.
Let me just say real quick, Stefan, I am paying more attention to you right now than I did any history teacher in high school. I don't know what it is about him, but he makes you want to learn more. He explains it in a way where I feel like, okay, I'm actually getting the information. We have seen some of this information before in some of our other Dutch history lessons, but I love that we're getting to learn about more of the resistance side. Sure, we knew there was a resistance, and we heard little this and that about it, but it's cool to know that right from the jump, people were like, oh no, this is not going to happen. Like, we have to fight back against this. You're always going to have your people that it takes them a while to come around. And then you're going to have your other people that just say, you know what? Okay, this is the new life. Not everybody is a fighter, but thank God for them. Like, seriously, very, very interesting, intriguing time in history. I'm glad I wasn't alive during it. I will say that much, because people went through hell. We know that it was horrible. I don't know what I would do if someone just came to America tomorrow and took over everything. Like, how do you even begin? Like, how do you even begin to think? Nobody knows what's going on. It's chaos. It's hell.
Eventually, the Leiden University was closed down. And not only professors, but also students from different universities took part in the Dutch resistance against the German occupier in various forms. Later, this student resistance was coordinated by the Council of Nine, de Raad van Negen. The initial difficult contact between the Dutch resistance and the Dutch government in exile was one of the main reasons why the resistance took off so slowly. Resistance fighter Frans Goedhart said about this after the war when he spoke about Radio Orange, Radio Oranje, the Dutch radio broadcast from England. The whole style, the whole position of Radio Orange seemed to us so unreal, so unfounded, so badly informed and so little adequate to the serious situation in our country, that we got the feeling that it was urgently needed to better inform the other side. So we started looking for ways to get in touch with the other side, because everything showed that the Dutch government in London must have been poorly informed. This would lead to the dropping of Dutch spies in German-occupied Netherlands to gather intel and report back. They fell victim to the infamous Englandspiel, England game, a successful counterintelligence operation of the Abwehr, the German military intelligence, from 1942 till 1944. And then there were also the Engeland fighters, the England sailors, who tried to make it to England to join the Dutch government in exile. And one of the famous England sailors was Erik Havelhoff Roelsema, also known as the Soldier of Orange. Check out the book, the movie and the musical. The most well-known collective form of resistance occurred during the February strike in 1941. On the 22nd of February, the Germans carried out a raid in Amsterdam and arrested 427 Jews who were then deported to Mauthausen. The CPN, the Dutch Communist Party, used this affair to launch a collective strike which occurred on the 25th of February in Amsterdam and soon spread to other cities. The German occupier answered with violence. 9 people were killed that day and the strike leaders were arrested and shot. Do notice that the February strike was the only time in history that a people collectively protested against the prosecution of Jews. Sadly though, most Dutch Jews would end up deported. Why that is, I'll talk about that in a future video. So let's take a look at the different types of resistance we have here. Aid to people in hiding. During World War II in German-occupied Netherlands, 350,000 people went into hiding, among which 25,000 Jews. Going into hiding became more common after January 1942, when the Germans announced the Work Deployment Service, the Arbeitseinsatz, for 18 to 23 years old. The LO, the National Organization for Aid to People in Hiding, would play a major role in this. Key figure was Helena Kuipers-Rietberg, nicknamed Aunt Riek, from Winterswijk. She wanted to search for hideout addresses. Kuipers-Rietberg approached a Dutch pastor, Frederik Slomp, to aid her. He was hesitant, but she convinced him. In a post-war interview, Slomp recalled the conversation. "I say, but I don't dare. Where I come, there I meet the people, there I go by bicycle, but I don't dare to travel by train." She looked at me and said the words I will never forget. "Hey dude, would it be so bad if you were killed, if thousands of boys were saved?" I wasn't able to answer that question. The LO would grow out to a large organization with departments all over German-occupied Netherlands. Another organization was Group 2000, led by Jacoba van Tongeren in Amsterdam. As the prosecution of Jews intensified, more people were in need of hiding addresses. Members of the resistance selflessly put their lives at risk. There is a dark side to the case. In some cases, the people in hiding caused so much nuisance that they had to be killed by the resistance. Forgeries, armed resistance and sabotage. People in hiding and resistance members were in need of forged identity cards. As time progressed, these fake ID cards became better forged. The PBC, the Identity Office, was founded by Gerrit-Jan van der Veen. Also, the Persoonsbewijzen-sectie, the identity cards section, which was part of the LO, contributed to the need of forged ID cards. In some cases, individual members, such as Frida Bellenfante, issued forged cards on their own. Part of the LO was also the Landelijke Knokploegen, the LKP, or National Knock Teams. They undertook kraakacties, where they raided distribution offices to steal ration stamps to provide food for the people in hiding. They also raided banks. An example was in Almelo, where they took 46.1 million guilders, which is around 300 million euros today. Later in the war, these teams also attacked prisons to liberate resistant members that were incarcerated. In some cases they carried out liquidations and imported Nazis were assassinated. Perhaps most famous was Jannetje Johanna Schaft, nicknamed Honey, also known as the girl with the red hair who stole ID cards and helped people in hiding. She worked as a courier and inquired by talking to German officers. Eventually she took part in several liquidations. After the D-Day landings, encouraged by the Dutch government in exile, the resistance carried out more acts of sabotage. Most famous was the railway strike of 1944, which did attribute to the Dutch famine in the west of the country. As the Western Allies liberated the country, many of the members of the armed resistance joined the Binnenlandse Strijdkrachten, the BS, the domestic armed forces, to aid the Allies. Espionage. The Dutch resistance also took part in espionage. The goal was to gather intel and pass it on to England. This first went via Sweden and Switzerland. Initially, the Dutch government in exile and the Allies, they were kinda hesitant to trust individual broadcasters. They could be working for the Germans. Later in the war, Allies in England had frequent contact with several resistant groups such as the OD, the Order Service, Group Case, Group Albrecht and Fiat Libertas, who helped crash Allied pilots. The messaging was about military inquiries, developments during the occupation, and questions for the Dutch government in exile. Organization.
It's crazy to me that this is all, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, not that very long ago. There are still people alive that had to deal with it, whose families were directly in the resistance. Like, it's shameful, first and foremost. Like, I can't believe there's people that don't care about the history. That really, I can't believe I was so ignorant of it before we had a YouTube channel. Why didn't I care? Why wasn't I looking to see more about what the world is, how it got to be the way that it is? All of our histories are intertwined at some point. Somebody discovered something, somebody wanted to claim something, somebody wanted ultimate power. This guy over here is taking over there, and it is a book that could never be fully written. And even still, we don't know all of the tales because he who wins writes the story. He who wins writes the information that the next generation has. This is how it went down. It's just crazy how we've come to be where we are today. And that this is something that is still very, very painful in people's minds out there. And then you just find some people that aren't interested in it at all. They just don't care about anything. I'm over here getting choked up because I'm thinking about all of the people that I know and love from up there. And it's like, wow, I can't believe. Like, it's almost impossible to think about all of the things that they've had to endure. Like, and this is just a drop in the bucket.
The Dutch resistance consisted of multiple organizations, groups, and individuals. There were larger organizations though. I already mentioned the LO for people in hiding. Then there was also the RVV, the Council of Resistance, which was an umbrella organization for the Dutch resistance. And then there was also the NSF, the National Aid Fund. And this was organized by banker Walraven van Hal. Now initially this fund was established to help the families of the sailors who were on these merchant ships that didn't return to the Dutch harbors after the Germans had conquered the country. I mentioned this earlier. By clever banking tricks, he managed to help people in need. It's a whole economic story. It's very interesting. There's also a good movie about it, so I highly recommend to look it up for yourself. Eventually, Van Hal's actions became known as the biggest bank fraud in Dutch history. Van Hal was nicknamed the Oil Man. And why was that? Well, that was because he managed to get different resistance organizations, groups, factions who often disagreed with one another together. Sadly though, many people of the Dutch resistance did not make it. Some were betrayed, others got themselves killed, and others just had bad luck. LO founder Helena Kuipers-Rietberg was arrested together with her husband in 1944. She decided to take all the blame on her since she assumed women would be treated less severe. She was deported to concentration camp Ravensbrück and died there in December that year. Forger Gerrit-Jan van der Veen attempted a raid on a prison in Amsterdam to free imprisoned resistance members on the 1st of May 1944. The raid failed. He got shot 2 times but managed to escape. Mid-May he was arrested and condemned to death after a show trial. In the dunes near Overveen he was executed on June 10, 1944. Banker Walraven van Hal was arrested early 1945. Since he carried a forged ID card, the German police didn't find out he was van Hal. But this didn't matter. When in February a German soldier was killed by the resistance, the occupier decided to execute prisoners in reprisal. Van Hal was among them. He was executed on the 12th of February 1945. Armed resistance fighter Hannie Schaft was arrested in March 1944. After a routine checkup, they found resistance leaflets and a pistol. She confessed to the assassination of 5 Dutch collaborators. Normally, women were to be deported, but the order was to execute her, because, according to the German commander, placement in a camp was no longer possible due to the war conditions. She was executed near Overveen on 17th of April 1945, barely 3 weeks before the liberation. Those who did survive it had their own mental battles after the war. Anxiety attacks, stress, but also the feeling of guilt because they survived while many of their comrades, their friends, their brothers and sisters in arms had not. An estimated 2,000 to 3,000 resistance members were executed by the German occupier in the Netherlands. Around 4,400 died in prisons and camps. Several hundreds of them were executed on the Waalddorpse Vlakte near Den Haag. According to post-war historian Lou de Jong, 45,000 Dutch people took part in the resistance, which was around 5% of the total population. The numbers of people who took people in hiding is excluded from this statistic. The story of the Dutch resistance is a story of individuals, and that is what makes it so interesting. Now, this was a general overview of the history of the Dutch resistance in World War II, and perhaps there are some details you want to add, so go all out in the comments. Also, I did cover Dutch collaboration extensively, and I will continue to do that. But do you also want to see more videos about the Dutch resistance? If so, leave a comment. A shout out to my patrons and a special thanks to Janis Dozenkiewicz, Joanne, Justin Trubel, Peter King, Tanya Dixie, Henry Clarkson, Rob Park, Andrea Martic, and Fernando Lopez Ojeda. Please consider becoming a patron. I can make better, cooler, and more awesome content for you. You can also support me via PayPal. The links are in the description. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe if you have not already, and also share it with a friend you think he or she might find this interesting. If you want to learn more about World War II in the Netherlands, you can click right here. Thank you so much for watching, en opdat we hen niet mogen vergeten.
Hey, get over right now and show Stefan over at History Hustle all the love in the world, keeping stories alive that the world needs to be kept alive. We can never ever forget the things that have happened. We can never ever forget the people that put their lives at risk to get you back. Like, it's really, I understand all of the respect that people have. I totally get it. It's a whole different kind of thing. Ever since the dawn of time, like we've been checking out Dutch history to the way back, and I'm saying it's just more Americans should know. I feel like I've been sheltered my whole life when you start learning about the rest of the world and the things that you didn't learn in the textbooks, and actually looking at a people perspective and seeing how it felt. Like, I've been to war, but war is never ever fun. It's never ever something somebody wants to go through. It's just hell. Like, it's something that shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't be normal. I won't say that it's not normal, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like the go-to, know-all, end-all, let's have a war. We can think of other, better ways, but we can never, ever let the world forget about what actually happened back then. Shout out to Stefan. I appreciate it. You kept me in tune the entire time. Smash the like button if you liked it, the dislike button, but I won't believe you. The link's right there in the description. Go check out him and his community. Till the next one, by the Combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe. I love you to the moon and back. Peace.